All right, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so Marcia called me back and she is going to be in Sydney on Monday. She's going to call you. I gave her your new phone number or your phone number. She's going to call you and see if they can't get something set up to get going on some programs. And I told her that there's all kinds of stuff going on, that you and I have gotten your Medicaid back, your SNAP back. Social Security's not quite there, but we're working on it. And that the biggest crisis issue right now is housing and the ability to get safe housing. And she was talking fast, and I don't know all the things, but apparently they do have some sort of program that she said they've been able to get other people into housing, and maybe Section 8 might be an option if that, since it wasn't Section 8 before, it was whatever the other kind is called.
Low income.
Yeah. So they have a program. Apparently, you work through the program, whatever that is. You do it with them. They support you through it, and then they get you into housing. Not necessarily like a house, or I don't know all the details. She's going to share that with you and maybe me later.
I know that they have it's basically like a group home for adults there, and a lot of the people up there are volatile. I stayed. I believe it's Cirrus House because Cirrus House took over for Region One, but there's Wyobraska Mental Health, and I worked with them um, probably back in 2000 or earlier. They were going to help me out. They put me in this group home, but there was a guy there who slept with a knife under his bed, and he had psychotic episodes, and he pulled his knife on me and was threatening to kill me later on at the dinner table and some other situations, and it was
Yeah, my understanding was this is not a group home, but
all
I don't
right.
know. I know that there's. I told her that you probably had a place for a month, and that was about it. And so there's like a time limit of getting through whatever this stuff is. And so I'm sure it's jumping through hoops with them and doing what they tell you to do when they tell you to do it for a while. But then I think that gets you through a program, or and I'm doing air quotes, where then they will get you into a house or into low income or into something. Um, so it's kind of like your reentry back in. That's the first and only thing I've heard of, and I've looked everywhere in terms of getting back in housing and getting that fixed. Because without that, like you've said a million times, I've said a million times, you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, you can't move even if you wanted to. So I'm just praying that that goes well in whatever program it is, that they help you get through it so that you can get shelter and be safe
Yes, ma'am.
and get out of chapel. Now, she did mention, I told her I didn't think you would entertain it. I said, you've got some issues with Scotts Bluff. And she said, the only thing I'll say about that is there's a lot of supports there that we could plug him into. And she said, I understand he doesn't have to do that. You got to do what you got to do. But she said she just rattled off 3, 4 things that she thought would be helpful for you there. But, that's going to be your choice.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am. Well, I really do hate Scotts Bluff. I do, but there's also the fact like the first time that Dual County pulled this stuff was just before 4th of July of 2018. That's the first time that Nebraska State Patrol was supposed to be involved. They were supposed to call me back and never did. That was all the way back in 2018. Now, I was entertaining possible housing in Scotts Bluff, and I was told that the waiting list is 3 years and that they only have 2 years worth. they're only allowed to have a waiting list for 2 years. So like there was no chance of me getting anything anytime soon. And if I got on their list, I still couldn't get on their list because it's a 2 year list, and there's 3 years worth of backlog.
Well, all she told me, this lady, and I can't say everybody else has disappointed me, but she seems like she has been around the block and she knows. And so she just said, she said the person in Sydney, I forget her name because I'm not good with names, will meet with you too with her. I think it might be Penny. Anyway, she said she's pretty a no nonsense lady, but she wants to help people get through whatever this plan is, so that you get the funds, so that you can get the house, so that you can get back. And so I think if you can just see what Penny and her have to say, it sounds like that might be our only hope.
Well, one thing, the Scottsbluff Sheriff's Department, when I tried to get a hold of them repeatedly while I was there, I tried to get a hold of them about previous crimes, and they pretty much act the same way as Dual County does. They act the same way as the Sydney cops do too. Um, I have just a few months to get the body cameras from those officers before they're legally allowed to destroy them, which is part of these stall tactics that they keep pulling. It's they have 1 year. They're not allowed to destroy their body cameras for at least a year. After a year, they're allowed to destroy the body cameras. And that's why they keep doing things like this to drag it out. Marcia Estrada, I met her while I was in the Scottsbluff jail, and she did not at all like what they were doing to me. She like I said, she knows. Um, she, she worked with Region One. She was with them before Sierra's House took over. So now she's with Sierra's House because Region One basically doesn't exist. They still kind of sort of have the name, but everything, like I said, goes through Sierra's House. She liked Tamara, and who wouldn't? Tamara, number one, was a hard worker, and number two, she knew what was going on. Marcia Estrada also worked with Jen Beebe when she worked at Region 1. Marcia Estrada had nothing nice to say about Jen Beebe at all. She said that Jen Beebe was lazy and that Jen Beebe had a habit of not helping people, of not returning calls. Like by the time you and I spoke for the first time, Jen Beebe was supposed to help me get housing, and was court ordered to do so, by the way. They were court ordered to help me with that stuff, and they were supposed to start helping me right after Christmas in 2019. By the time you and I got started, it's because I had made probably 30 calls to Region 1 to try to get help, and eventually I was able to get a hold of her boss and talk to her boss about the situation, and her boss said that she couldn't do anything about Jen Beebe until they did an investigation on her about the things that she had done to me. But they didn't bother to find out what those things were. They didn't bother ever to call me back about the investigation, to ask anything. No investigator ever got back a hold of me. And then Jen Beebe called me up. I tried to get her to explain the things that she had told me in the Scottsbluff jail, and Jen Beebe was busy playing stupid. She still had not done her job, and that was like 6 months afterwards. I mean, it literally took over 6 months for her to call me back when she was supposed to call me back all the way back in December of 2019. All of the things that you did, when she finally called me back, she said, "Oh, well, I can help you with getting your disability back and getting into housing." She knew full well that I was already in a place, that I already had my disability money back. That's the thing, is that I had explained that to her boss, that the things that that Region 1 was court ordered to help me with, that you had to do that, and that Jen Beebe got paid for doing a job that she didn't do, and you're not getting paid shit for doing this. I mean, you're literally taking time off of work to do this, which deprives you of income, which prevents you from being able to take care of your family fully, and that's not okay.
Well, I have time off, paid time off, so I don't have to do that.
That's good. But
Um,
it's also the fact that you have to take that time. But you
yeah,
know, Jen Beebe working at the jail, I mean, you know, she pretended to be nice mostly when she worked with Region 1, but when she got that badge on, she did what most people do. She was mean.
yeah.
I mean, the other guards that were there were pretty horrible to me. There were a couple of guards that I spoke with. There was one named Herrera, and there was another one named Lauderdale, that both spoke to me about Jen Beebe as a guard, and they don't like her. The same thing that Marcia said. She's lazy. She doesn't do her job. She's a bully. You know.
Well, I'm just clinging to hope that it's going to go well, and that that you like them, and that they're good to work with, and they can get you into a house, and then this sure seems like they are the only ticket. Because then if you could get this, I mean, I know it's not a permanent thing, but at least you'd get safety, get out of town, but not out of the way. So anyway, just consider that. I'm sure she'll tell you more about it. You can decide what you want to decide.
Yes,
She
ma'am.
talked
I
about
was gonna
Sydney.
say the
What?
the thing about Scott's Bluff when I tried to turn in Scott DaCosta and his deputies back in 2018, they had me sent to the Scotts Bluff Hospital to prevent me from turning them in. And Jen Beebe helped them to do that. Um, when I was in the hospital, they wouldn't listen to a thing I had to say. The police, specifically it was Jared Hahn and Cody Selhorst. I tried to get Jen Beebe there so that I could turn in uh, Jared Hahn and Cody Selhorst and have a witness present. And that's what Jen Beebe was supposed to be there for, except that those officers had told Jen Beebe that I reached for their gun and tried to suicide by cop. And that's why she was the one that they convinced to have me shipped to Scotts Bluff to the hospital there. While I was in the hospital, they were threatening to lock me down and shoot me in the ass with drugs because literally the first thing they wanted to do when I came in the door, they were trying to shove drugs down my throat. They didn't know what was going on. They just knew what the officers told them. Now, the situation as it happened was that when uh, Alicia Bollinger and her dad were harassing me at my grandma's funeral, across the internet, I tried to turn it in. There was a safety issue, and I was afraid that something had happened to Alicia because she had my phone number, and the person who was on it, Alicia's account, was her dad. And her dad was asking for my phone number. That was a red flag right there because Alicia had my number. The other thing is that for 7 hours he did this. Every time that I would reply to something, he would delete his comment. Now, lucky for me, I was able to save all of that because although he deleted the comments on YouTube, it didn't delete it from my notifications. And there was an officer who was eventually called who showed up. He didn't do his job. And Scott DaCosta, I have multiple recordings with him admitting that Officer Jordan Anderson did not do his, or Deputy Jordan Anderson did not do his job. The problem is that even though Scott admitted it, his other two deputies, Jared Hahn and Cody Selhorst, were busy trying to threaten, harass, and intimidate me into leaving town, trying to coerce me, trying to basically anything that they could do to try to scare me into leaving. Now, when Jen Beebe pulled that BS because everybody listens to the cops and nobody listens to me. It's just assumed that the cops know. they told the hospital that I was, hold on a second, bipolar. Because, see, when I had tried to turn the situation in with the other officer at my grandma's funeral, when I had tried to turn it in to Sheriff DaCosta himself, I went into his office to go explain it to him, and he gave me a copy of half of the incident. They only recorded the first half. It's horrible. They keep on doing stuff like that. But I got the disc and I looked at it, and I had asked the sheriff. I went back and I talked to the sheriff. I said, "Did you take a look at the video?" He said, "I looked at it for a few seconds, but then I turned it off." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because your friend said that you were bipolar." I said, "He didn't say I was bipolar. He said I was autistic." And by the way, that is also on my YouTube channel. Um, that recording with Jordan Anderson in that incident is on my YouTube channel. He didn't say that I was bipolar. He said that I was autistic. But the fact is, it doesn't matter if someone is autistic, bipolar, schizophrenic. It doesn't matter. If they're trying to turn in a crime, they need to be allowed to turn in a crime. Now, the hospital didn't listen to anything that I had to say. They always do what the cops say. That's the reason that I have to be able to see an independent doctor, somebody who has not been tainted by the police saying something. You know, on multiple occasions, police outright lied to the hospitals, and the hospitals wrote down what the cops said as if it was a fact. When I was in the Longmont Hospital trying to turn in Officer Waylon Lolatai, the officers that I was having to talk to, Amanda Jonas and several others, they said that they were going to take me somewhere safe where I could make a police report. They said I could make a police report as soon as they got me to the hospital. I got to the hospital and they left. So I did everything that I could to try to get the cops back there. When the cops got back there, all they did was physically assault me and inject me with drugs. Now,
Right.
the problem is that literally that was the situation where they took me to Scottsbluff was the first situation where that happened. I literally had to hold their electronics hostage to prevent them from putting drugs in my system. And then I got charged with crimes for doing that. I never should have been at the hospital. I should have been turning in those officers, literally the officers who took me to the hospital and lied. Now, this is police tactics America-wide. This doesn't just happen in Nebraska and Colorado. This is all across the country when you try to turn in an officer. The only thing that can protect you from that is having someone go in with you when you try to turn in that officer. And that's what Jen Beebe was supposed to do. Instead, she had me shipped to Scottsbluff. But then again, with the lies that they told her, you know, I mean, she's got certain information to go on. She didn't bother listening to what I had to say. Meanwhile, at that point in time, I still had to deal with the fact that Natalie and Alicia's family and their web hangers on and all of that stuff had been harassing me and threatening me, and like literally her family were using some of these web sleuths to so that they didn't have to commit the crimes. They had other people do it for them. But I'm not allowed to turn in those other people either. Meanwhile, I can prove that all of these people that were harassing me and threatening my life are all friends with the Bollingers. Meanwhile, all of these people have lied in court dates over and over again. I haven't been able to speak up or show evidence in any of them. When I'm in jail, I get assaulted repeatedly. That's what happens when on your arrest record it says assaulting a police officer. Now, they dropped the charges on that. I was the one who was assaulted. But then again, because I didn't have a safe place, I couldn't turn them in because I didn't have a safe, just like the stuff that we're going through right now. It's exactly the same thing. I haven't had a safe place in years.
I know. And I hear you, and I've heard this story, and I understand it. I've literally been on the phone for almost 5 hours. I gotta get this paperwork done so that I can get it in the mail to you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna hang up on you then. And
Well, no,
thank you
no,
for
no, no. I have
everything.
to have no. I have to have you to answer the questions.
All right. Can I hang up on you and go to the bathroom? I've been holding it in for hours.
Yeah, just call me right back. Thanks. Bye.
Yes, ma'am. Bye. God, I gotta pee.